The year was 1910. In a small, dimly lit studio, a family posed for what they thought would be an ordinary portrait. The baby, dressed in a crisp white gown, sat in a wooden chair, chubby hands resting on a prop meant to entertain and comfort. To anyone glancing at it, the photograph seemed harmless, a frozen moment of innocence, a memory carefully preserved in sepia tones. But something about the baby's hands made experts pause. Decades later, when the photograph resurfaced, at first, it looked like a simple toy, the kind children of that era were often given for studio sessions. Yet the closer historians examined it, the more details refused to add up. The shape was wrong. The texture seemed unnatural. The way the baby gripped it suggested knowledge, awareness, even intent that no infant could possibly have. And then came the shadows. Small, subtle, almost imperceptible, yet they hinted at something behind the scene. Something, or someone, who had no place in the photograph and yet left a mark that would not fade. It was the kind of discovery that made people look twice, lean closer, and then step back in disbelief. What should have been a simple family keepsake had become a puzzle, a haunting question captured in glass and light. By the time experts realized what the baby was holding, the story had already crossed the line from curiosity to horror. Welcome to Truth Uncaged, where we dig into the hidden corners of history, uncovering stories that were meant to stay buried. Today, we're staring at a photograph from 1910, a baby, seemingly innocent, sitting in a studio chair. But as you've already glimpsed, there's something in the baby's hands that makes even experts pause. Something that turns a simple memory into a chilling mystery. Imagine holding a photograph like this in your own hands. At first you see nothing wrong. A baby's smile, tiny hands folded neatly. But the more you study it, the more details emerge. Details that don't belong, that whisper a story the family may never have known. Before we dive deeper, I want to hear from you. Take a moment to look at the image closely. What do you think the baby is holding? Could it be an ordinary toy? Or something far more disturbing? Comment below with your first impressions, theories, or even your gut instincts. Often, the most shocking truths emerge when ordinary people notice what experts might miss. And if you're ready to explore secrets that history tried to erase, make sure you stay with us until the very end. Because what this photograph reveals is not just a curiosity. It's a doorway into something dark, something that has lingered unseen for over a century. The year was 1910, a time when photography was still a rare luxury. Families traveled miles just to have their portraits taken, often saving for months to afford the session. Studios were small, dimly lit rooms with heavy curtains and stiff chairs. Children were posed with care, their expressions carefully controlled, their hands arranged just so. Every detail mattered, from the crisp folds of clothing to the tilt of a head. In this world, photographs were more than keepsakes. They were statements of status, of family pride, and sometimes silent witnesses to secrets no one dared speak aloud. Studio owners held unusual power over what was captured, often experimenting with lighting, props, and exposures in ways that blurred the line between reality and illusion. Some even dabbled in what would later be called spirit photography, where shadows and double exposures created ghostly figures alongside the living. The family in our photograph likely had no idea that their portrait session would produce more than a memory. They probably assumed it would be a simple snapshot of innocence, a baby, smiling, holding a harmless object forever frozen in time. But in this studio, with its strange angles, lingering shadows, and the subtle hand placements of the photographer, something slipped through the cracks, something that decades later would make experts question whether what they were seeing was truly real or something far more unsettling. Even the walls of the studio seemed to carry the weight of past sessions. Dark corners, once dismissed as simple shadows, held hints of figures that had moved too quickly to be seen at the time. And in one of those corners, the object in the baby's hands would quietly become the most haunting detail of all. At first glance, the baby's hands seemed ordinary, resting on a prop as most infants' hands would in a studio portrait. But experts examining the photograph decades later noticed something strange. The object the baby was holding did not resemble any toy common in 1910. Its texture was unnatural, its edges sharp in a way that caught the light eerily. Even more unsettling was the way the baby gripped it, tight, deliberate, almost knowing. Shadows in the photograph added to the unease. Faint, irregular shapes curled around the object as if something unseen was partially supporting it. The baby's fingers appeared longer than normal, bent in ways that no infant's hands should bend. Some observers swore it seemed as though the child was being guided subtly by something or someone just out of the frame. Historians began to question the studio itself. Could this have been a simple mistake, a strange angle or poor lighting, or was it something more deliberate, hidden within the photographer's craft? The object was no ordinary keepsake. It demanded attention, scrutiny, and a growing sense of dread. And the more people stared, the more unsettling it became. Because this was not just a photograph of a baby. It was a moment frozen in time, capturing something that should not have been captured, something that would make even the most rational experts hesitate to explain. The first clue had emerged, and it was only the beginning. As the photograph resurfaced in archives and private collections, experts began a meticulous examination. Every detail was scrutinized. The baby's posture, the shadows, the lighting, even the grain of the photo itself. The object in the baby's hands refused to conform to expectations. It was too precise, too deliberate, and too unnerving. Experts debated. Could it have been a toy, a simple studio prop, or something far more sinister? Researchers then turned to the studio records. The appointment book, partially preserved, revealed nothing unusual, at least on the surface. But subtle anomalies began to appear. There were gaps in the dates, names half erased, and sessions that seemed to vanish without trace. One particular entry, the day the photograph was taken, was smudged beyond recognition, as though someone had tried to hide it. Historians also examined newspapers, diaries, and letters from families in the town. One recurring pattern stood out: mentions of strange occurrences surrounding the children in that neighborhood. Reports of unexplained illnesses, fleeting shadows in windows, and whispers of objects moving on their own were scattered throughout local archives. Though most could be dismissed as superstition when combined with the peculiar photograph, a troubling picture began to form. The investigation had only just begun, yet the photograph's secrets were already hinting at a story larger than anyone could have anticipated. Something in the baby's hands had triggered a chain of questions that no one had anticipated, a chain that would lead deeper into a mystery the town had long tried to forget. The closer experts examined the photograph, the more disturbing the object in the baby's hands became. What had seemed like a simple toy was anything but. Its shape, oddly angular and polished, hinted at something ceremonial or even ritualistic. The texture was inconsistent, almost alive under scrutiny, as if the camera had captured more than a static object, something imbued with an energy the infant could not possibly comprehend. Letters and studio notes from that period added to the mystery. The photographer was known to experiment with props that blurred the line between playthings and symbols. Some were intended to amuse, others to provoke. Yet this object, whatever it truly was, seemed to carry a significance that extended beyond the studio walls, a symbol or artifact that had never been publicly acknowledged. Even more chilling were the subtle details hidden in the shadows. Some observers claimed to see faint outlines of fingers or shapes around the baby, suggesting that the object was not entirely alone. Could it have been guided, held, or influenced by something unseen at the moment the shutter clicked? Paranormal researchers posited that this might be a rare instance of a photograph capturing residual energy, a moment where the living unknowingly intersected with forces outside the ordinary. By the time the evidence was compiled, one fact had become undeniable. This photograph was no ordinary keepsake. It was a record of something far more unsettling, a silent witness to a presence that had been overlooked for over a century. The baby's innocent pose hid a terrifying reality, one that challenged everything experts thought they knew about photography, history, and the unseen. As the photograph continued to draw attention, the story surrounding it grew darker. Researchers delved into the baby's family history, uncovering accounts that raised more questions than answers. Neighbors' diaries hinted at strange behavior in the household, objects moving on their own, sudden cold drafts, and the unsettling feeling of being watched. The family's letters contained cryptic mentions of unseen visitors and shadows that lingered longer than they should. The studio itself added another layer of unease. Former apprentices described the photographer as obsessed with capturing more than mere appearances. Some claimed he dabbled in early spirit photography, using props and double exposures to make the invisible visible. Could the object in the baby's hands have been part of one of these experiments? Or had the studio inadvertently captured something far beyond human understanding? Observers also noticed changes in the photograph over time. High-resolution scans revealed subtle shifts in the shadows and in the grip of the baby's hands. Depending on the angle and light, the object seemed to move slightly as if resisting the stillness of the image. Collectors who had displayed the photograph reported unsettling experiences, whispers in empty rooms, the faint sense of being touched, and dreams haunted by the same hands that appeared in the photo. The initial curiosity had grown into a growing dread. What was once a charming studio portrait had become a puzzle wrapped in layers of history, suspicion, and the unexplainable. And the more people examined it, the more they realized that the photograph was not just a record of the past. It was a doorway to something still very much alive in the present. Decades have passed, yet the photograph refuses to fade into obscurity. In recent years, it resurfaced on online archives, history blogs, and forums dedicated to the unexplained. Each new viewing sparked the same reactions: unease, fascination, and a lingering sense of dread. Experts, historians, and paranormal enthusiasts all agreed. The object in the baby's hands was unlike anything they had encountered before. Modern technology allowed for closer inspection, revealing subtle details invisible to the naked eye. Shadows in the corners seemed to shift, textures appeared more lifelike, and the baby's grip, rigid and precise, suggested an awareness no child could possess. Scholars debated endlessly. Could this be a clever manipulation of early photographic techniques, or had the camera captured a presence that transcended ordinary reality? Collectors and viewers alike began reporting strange experiences: a faint whisper while examining the image, doors opening on their own, dreams haunted by long, delicate hands clutching an object in ways that defied logic. Even those who never touched the photo felt an inexplicable unease, as if the photograph demanded to be noticed, as if it carried the weight of a century-old secret. The legacy of the image has grown beyond its origins. What began as a simple studio portrait has become a cautionary tale about appearances, perception, and the hidden details that linger in history. The baby's hands, holding something impossible to identify, serve as a silent reminder that some moments, some images, capture far more than we can understand, moments that refuse to remain buried. Looking at the photograph, it's easy to see only a baby in a studio chair, a moment of innocence frozen in time. But the hands tell a different story. They speak of something hidden, something that escaped notice for over a century. They remind us that history often holds secrets far darker than the surface suggests. The object in the baby's hands is more than a prop. It is a symbol of the unknown. It challenges what we believe is possible and forces us to question the ordinary. What was meant to be a keepsake, a memory of a child, became a record of something that should not have been captured. Shadows, subtle details, and the object itself all hint at a presence that defies explanation, leaving us unsettled long after the photograph is set aside. The lesson is clear. Appearances can be deceiving. Even in the most mundane, seemingly innocent moments, the past may be quietly waiting to reveal itself. A simple photograph can become a window into mysteries that history tried to hide, reminding us that curiosity comes with both revelation and unease. And perhaps the most chilling thought of all is this: we may never know the full story. The photograph keeps its secrets, silently, patiently, until someone dares to look closer, and even then, some truths may remain just out of reach. The photograph may sit quietly in an archive, a digital scan on a collector's hard drive, or a faded print tucked in an old album. But its impact lingers. The baby's hands clutching that impossible object refuse to be forgotten. They are a reminder that even the most innocent images can conceal secrets no one was meant to see. Now, the question is yours. If you discovered a photograph like this in your own family collection, would you look away? Or would you dare to examine it closely? Would you confront the shadows or accept the surface, knowing that some details might change everything you think you know? Here at Truth Uncaged, we explore stories that history tried to erase, moments hidden in plain sight, and secrets the world almost forgot. If this story unsettled you, if it made you pause and wonder, leave a comment below. Share your theories, your fears, or the first thing you noticed in the photograph. And make sure to subscribe, because for every hidden detail, every overlooked image, there is a story waiting to be uncovered. Remember, the past is never truly gone. Sometimes it reaches out through the most ordinary things, a glance, a shadow, or a pair of tiny hands frozen forever in time.